Welcome, Air Force Lifecycle Management Center workforce. Today, I'm going to start a series of dialogues with our Director of Personnel, Ms. Sherry Artuso, where we're going to talk about AcqDemo. We've recently made a lot of changes to the AcqDemo program, and so I want to set up a series of leadership logs where we share perspective with you and have input from you and make sure you understand and fully embrace this amazing system of compensating our workforce. So today we're going to talk about the recent decision in AFMC to remove the tiers from AcqDemo. But why don't we go ahead and I'm going to have Sherry walk us through some background of the AcqDemo program.
Yes, ma'am. So I think it's important to give some of the background of what we've gone through and how we got to where we are today. As you know, we converted in 2016, and the whole primary goal of AcqDemo is to ensure that we fairly recognize and compensate our employees based on their organizational contribution to the mission, based on their level of position. We are very familiar with the 3 career paths that are in AcqDemo and know that various levels of positions and the complexity of those positions rolled into those 3 pay bands, making it a little bit difficult to really see the distinction of the complexity of the positions. So that is why AFMC initiated the tier system and put tiers in the bands to be able to set salary and make some compensation decisions. And now that we're 4 years now under AcqDemo and we have a lot of analysis and feedback from that, AFMC made the decision, of course we fully support that, to remove those tiers to go to this now next step.
You know, Sherry, and I get a lot of feedback from folks that say, why get rid of tiers now? You know, why now?
Right, and I think it's because we do have those 4 years under our belt, so our pay pool processes are pretty solid. We have functional pay pools that have all of that experience, the training under their belt. So now we can take the tiers off and know that we can still fairly compensate employees because we will know based on their position level in whatever band that they're in, what that compensation looks like, based on what they've given to the mission and the organization that they're in. So it is the right time to go ahead and make that next move for us.
Right. I think our pay pools now are very experienced in this, and so I think that that was also one of the reasons, as you said, that we have 4 years of experience now because we're able to do this.
Right.
So I know a lot of folks out there are thinking, will this change how we are compensated?
Yeah. And it really does not change the way an employee is compensated. It certainly, the decision will still be there. So with tiers off, the pay pool, still needs to look at the organization, the contribution that the employee made. It's always important to remember that piece of it. That the person is on a certain position and a certain level of complexity, scope, and responsibility. So in the pay pool process, it's their responsibility to see that and then compensate the person for that contribution. So the way they're compensated, again, going back to the primary goal of AcqDemo, is to make sure that employees are compensated based on that. So the compensation doesn't necessarily change, but based on all of what I just said, certainly there will be decisions made whether someone will get an enduring pay increase based on certain enduring performance and contributions that they've made. And in some cases, a one-time bonus may be the contribution and reward the employee receives versus the enduring salary increase. A one-time bonus could be for situations where an employee, it's a non-enduring effort, but a significant effort that we certainly want to ensure that they're recognized for. So that's a little bit of a difference in the way to describe this as we go forward and the difference of the programs. Certainly those compensation decisions of salary or bonus or the combination has always been there, but I think it's the way going forward how we articulate that to the workforce.
And I know over the past several weeks, we've been working through some of the administrative changes
Yes, ma'am.
associated with removing the tiers for all of my AcqDemo direct reports. I know I did the PRD addendums along with our midterm reviews. So anything you want to add there, but I think we should be wrapping all of that up here shortly, correct?
Yes, yep. And certainly under your leadership, the center established those 3 working groups that are there to outline the policies and processes needed to fully implement a no-tier AcqDemo program for us. All 3 working groups are working very hard right now to get us to that next step of a smooth transition leading up to the next AcqDemo appraisal cycle coming up here beginning 1 October. So they're hard at work at that. We also are right in the middle, as you said, of the administrative process of removing tiers. And what that essentially means is employees by now probably have received and signed those addendums that's associated with their current performance requirements document. And so that would show that the tier has been removed from their PRD.
Okay.
We've also removed the tier from the official civilian personnel system. So, tiers have essentially been removed administratively from both of those systems. And then we also, going forward, will fill vacant positions with new PRDs that are free of the tier designation.
Okay.
So that right there really summarizes the administrative part of what we've done so far. We certainly have follow-on activities to, get to a more fully implemented program. And that is related to the update of our AcqDemo business rules.
Yes.
So we're in the process of doing that, as well as, and as soon as we're done with that, we're closely working with AFMC certainly. And we'll certainly publish that to the workforce when they're ready to be published, and we can then go forward to explain what those changes are and to make sure that people understand what it means to them and what career planning choices they may want to make in the future based on that new guidance.
Right. I want to make sure something you said in there, and a lot of our workforce may not realize this, but since September of 2019, we set up our own AFLCMC working group to look at AcqDemo. This was led by Mr. John Sly, who is the Deputy PEO now for the Executive Presidential Aircraft. Many of you may know John. But we had gotten a lot of feedback, and we're going to shift our conversation a little bit here to the career aspects of AcqDemo, because I think it's an area that we as a center probably did not do a very good job at talking about what does career progression mean within AcqDemo. And when General McMurray sent out his note a few weeks ago announcing the AcqDemo and the removal of tiers and the focus that we'll be having on it through our leadership is he says we are wholly embracing the program as it was designed with the workforce in mind. So I know, let's go a little bit more on the 3 working groups that we have going.
Yes, ma'am. So one of the working groups is that administrative working group that I described some of the more tactical activities to remove the tiers. The second one is focused on pay pool operations, the business rules, and the compensation strategy. That particular working group kind of gets at the heart of what you're talking about with the career paths. Of course, we know what the 3 career paths are, the NH, the NJ, and the NK that most of our workforce are in today. But beyond those standard career paths, we also have the career paths from a personal development standpoint.
How do I progress?
Exactly. So that's where I think the heart of the communication will be to make sure those employees, our employees, fully understand what that means.
Yes, exactly.
And I think it's easier perhaps to explain it to somebody coming in, let's say to an NH2 position, and knowing that band goes up to the GS 11 step 10 salary range, and again all of the various positions and the level of complexity that are in that particular band. So if somebody comes in to a position almost like a trainee at the lower end of that band, they need to understand the jobs that will get them to a place to be successful. And so that's not just having the compensation in mind, like how can I make more money and get to the top of the band?
Right.
With that comes the jobs associated with that.
Right.
And
Right.
what kind of jobs will
Right.
put you in a position to get a higher job, with higher level responsibility and be successful at it. That's
Right.
what we're trying to tie
Right.
those two things
Right.
together.
And Sherry, that's our commitment to the workforce, to make sure they understand that in all of our functional careers. So we'll be having a lot more on this come out. I want to do a series of YouTubes, and we'll have some charts, and I want to be able to walk you as the workforce through some of those career paths and those compensation ranges and things like that. Because that's an area I feel like that we just assumed through our castanet training that everybody understood. So I think we're going to have a real focus on training the workforce outside of just the castanet.
Exactly,
Yes.
absolutely.
Right.
And that really leads to the third working group.
Right.
That's the strategic communication and
Yep.
education. So in that group, of course, they're tied tightly with the other two groups to make sure that we are communicating in various ways, not just email, not just PowerPoint charts, but various ways to get the message across
Right.
in different ways so people, get a better understanding of where we're moving to in this new no-tier AcqDemo program. So that third working group is looking at that and to see what kind of tools and resources that we need to give our workforce to ensure we do a better job and to get into a position where we are getting their feedback a little
Right.
bit more,
Right.
easily. So
Right.
the new AcqDemo site that we've established, I think will allow that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I know I've gotten a lot of personal feedback from individuals that say, hey, I moved to a new position, I had increased responsibility, but I never really understood what was happening in terms of my compensation from a CRI or a cash award. So I really want us to be able to give some specific examples. And I think that's, once again, that's our commitment to walk through those.
Exactly,
So,
right. And I think the site will be able, we can use it to show a lot of, information, a lot of details, and some of our data analysis that might,
Exactly.
Yes, dispel some of the water cooler talk.
Because we
Yes.
know there's a lot of water cooler talk out there that quite frankly is misinformed. And I think that's one of the most important takeaways for you, our workforce, to understand. This is really about conversations with your supervisor and understanding, not what people are telling you at the water cooler. Because, as I said, there's a lot of misinformation, and I think that just breeds, people that are discontent with the system. So, I know a lot of times I get asked, well, AcqDemo is going to go away. This is just our experiment, like NSPS, that went away. But one of the things I wanted to share with you as the workforce is that recently Congress approved an extension of the AcqDemo program through 2028. And also additionally, there is language being worked that would make it a permanent program. So from all of that, and my understanding working at the AQ levels with Ms. Costella, this program is not going away. Matter of fact, I see us on a journey to continue to dive deeper into all of the benefits and the value that you can get from this program and using the Federal Register and things like that.
Right.
So
Right.
I think through this continuing evolution of AcqDemo, I have realized there's responsibility not only on the part of the supervisors, but there's also responsibility on individuals. And I think that's an area that all of us need to better embrace. As I said, I've had a lot of conversations with both employees and the supervisors and the responsibility on both sides. And quite frankly, I think there's been a lack of communication from both
Mm-hmm.
sides, particularly on as we get into the midterm cycle and then the final closeout
Right.
cycle. So,
And as
yeah.
you mentioned, it's here to stay. So
Exactly.
as a workforce, as individuals,
Mhm.
let's embrace it. What we don't
Exactly.
understand,
Exactly.
ask, from the
Mhm.
supervisor, chain of
Mhm.
command, the functional
Mhm.
communities, the site
Mhm.
that we want to put up, the DP experts
Right.
on staff that know the AcqDemo program. So
Mhm.
a lot of resources. So I would just encourage, like you said,
Right.
for everybody to
Right.
understand it, embrace it, because it's ours to make the best we
Right.
can make it.
Right. And, when we're out there talking a lot of our workforce and we get questions, I want to make sure people know where to get to our website. And that's kind of their homework. Everybody should go to the website
Yeah.
and make sure because we're going to continuously update
Yes,
this. And,
absolutely.
And a lot of times I get questions on, well, what about the folks that are under DP MAP too? And I can tell you there's a huge desire to bring all of our workforce to AcqDemo. I think that's something that's being looked at very closely. There's just a few wickets we need to do that from an Air Force perspective. But absolutely, it would be great to have all of our workforce under one compensation system. And I think we'll get there
Yeah,
someday.
I think someday.
Yes, exactly. So Sherry, I think we've touched on this, but I think there's a realization amongst all of us as supervisors, senior leaders to the highest levels of AFMC in the Air Force that we probably just assumed everybody understood this.
Right.
And so that is probably the strongest commitment I have to our workforce to make sure they better understand this. And we're gonna pull out all the stops to do that. Also, some things that we're thinking about is rotating people through our pay pools. And so, for example, one of the things we've talked about is the ability of having NH4s participate on NH3 pay pools. Because I think there's a lot of mystery out there, what happens in those pay pools. So as I think about this, I want to start a series of, we'll just have quick dialogues where we're able to deep dive down into some of these areas that we know have been of some concern and questions from our workforce. Particularly, I want to be able to come back and walk the workforce through what does a career path look like in engineering or contracting, and how do I advance in and through those career paths. And then I want to talk a little bit about the mystique of the pay pools and what goes on. And so I think we'll have some of our pay pool managers in here talk about some of that, because once again, we've talked about this water cooler myth out there that, and I've heard this, and I want you to know this is not happening. But what I've heard is so-and-so pay pool will never give anybody greater than a +1. That is absolutely not how this is working.
Right.
So that's my commitment, again, to the workforce, to make sure they understand that and have a much better appreciation. Once again, this is an area where I felt like we have not done a good job rolling this out, across AFMC and the center to make sure people understand that.
Yeah, we probably assumed, the initial training, while it was good, we probably assumed that everybody, understood that same message and really didn't probably take it as far as we should have, with maybe some additional training and some of the things you described in this environment right now, to where we can, next one of these we could target explaining the pay pool process a little bit more, bit more intimately, if you will, as well as maybe taking a career path of a particular functional, and then being able to show that, in an illustration, if you will, of what that means. Because I think that's the ultimate goal, is to, as we move to this no-tier AcqDemo program, we want employees to know what it means to them, and what, career planning choices, they need to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that kind of goes back to the point I made. The responsibility is on you as an individual, and then us as supervisors and leaders to make sure our folks understand that. So also one of the things I'd like to add to our list of to-dos is I know we have your Chief Talent Officer, Jessica, now working is to talk about the role of compensation in talent management. So I think we can bridge that, what a lot of corporate organizations are going to. This is not new to the corporate world. Matter of fact, they've been a contribution-based, performance-based system for a long time.
Right.
So I think what this does is really putting us as the government on a lot of parallel with them.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And I think that dialogue helps us bridge the gap
Exactly.
between the former GS longevity-based system
Exactly.
to the new AcqDemo,
Right.
that's a contribution-based
Right.
system.
And there's some realization through this system that yes, what a GS system did for you, a lot of the automatic within grades, that's not part of this system anymore. And so I just think the acceptance of that and really what that means to folks is important for us to talk about. So well, let's come back and let's dive down into our series of leadership laws.
Sounds good.
And to our workforce, this is our commitment, us and our commander, General McMurray. This is really about taking care of our workforce and compensating them for their mission contributions. So with that, Sherry, until we meet again,
Absolutely.
Let's get down and continue all our good work in AcqDemo.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Thank
everybody
you.
for listening today. Thank you.